Welcome back, everyone, to the Burnout Club. This is the place where we explore burnout and success one expert and experiment at a time. I'm your host, Patrice Bonfilio, and today I am joined by Denley McIntosh. He is a fellow podcaster and the
Mhm.
host of the Coach's Corner with Denley. And welcome to the Burnout Club, Denley.
Hey, Burnout Club community and Patrice especially. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. It doesn't take a genius to figure out we actually met at a podcasting conference, PodCon last year. Although Denley is further along in his podcasting journey, he has over 80 episodes, right? How many are you at this point?
Well, Kat just released my last one, so Kat, you can probably tell me a better number. Is I think 82. I think maybe.
Yeah.
I think she's yeah.
Um,
I think it was yeah. It should be 82 now. So I'm marching. Slowly but surely, trying to get to 100 now. That's my next goal.
yeah, that's fantastic.
hmm
And I saw the great news. You're in the top 10% of all podcasts. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I am, and shout out to the Mission Matters Network podcast community. I mean, being connected to that was sort of the start, but yeah, you're right. I think that the attrition rate in podcasting is pretty high. So maybe that's a little bit, I kind of stuck it out longer than others. But at
Hmm.
least, I guess, and to be all serious, the content and sharing with people what I am doing, it's just like they're not thinking, oh, I'm doing you a favor to kind of listen. It's like, oh, this is actually, there's substance on that. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful that people have said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think podcasts are like restaurants, right? Like if it's not good, no one's going to go, and you're going to end it pretty quickly. So why don't you tell the listeners what your podcast is about and what drove you to start it in the first place?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The Coach's Corner with Denley, it simply speaks about how do we deal with the issues of life. So I liken life as a ring. Boxing is the metaphor. The ring is where the battles or the conflicts or the challenges we have. And sometimes life beats us up. It beats us up pretty good. And so what I thought about the Coach's Corner is like in the ring of life, who's in your corner? Who's in your corner
Mm,
to help you, to support you in the challenges you're going through. So in the coach's corner, people will come back into the corner on the podcast. I'm here on their side, or I'll be doing a podcast with a guest, and we're co-coaching, providing really practical solutions to deal with the ring of life, the issues that come just by living. And so we kind of set it up a little bit of getting to know the co-coach, I like to say the guests, know a little bit
mhm,
about their biography, their story, tell us a little bit about what they do. And then we just kind of jump into the corner situation, get a little sense of why is this important? Why should we talk about this area with it, whether it be parenting, whether it be careers, whether it be business, whether it be AI, whatever the particular topic, what is the aim, what is the angle? And then we kind
mhm.
of get into the really some of the challenges that makes this person an expert to deal with it, and then they provide some corner tips in that way. If I'm interviewing, if I'm doing a monologue, which I enjoy doing because apparently I have too many thoughts in my head that my wife said you need to get it out there.
Yeah.
Writing took too long, so speaking is the next best thing. So I go through the same process, dealing with the issues of life, the ring of life, and making it practical. One thing I will say, Patrice, before I kind of give back to you, one of the things I kind of aim with the Coach's Corner is taking things that are pretty much either taken for granted or assumed or
Mm,
very complex. So I make the complex simple, the simple meaningful, and the meaningful profound and impactful. So what does that mean for
mm,
you in the day-to-day
nice.
road of life?
I like that. Can you say that one more time? That's a nice like
Yeah,
cascading effect there.
yeah. I make the complex simple, the simple meaningful, the meaningful profound or impactful. So if you take an issue like AI, for example, which is really complex, in my background a little bit as an engineer, so I have
Hmm.
some of that knowledge to say, okay, how do I deal with it? At the same time, I've studied, philosophy, theology, sociology. So my post grad, my master's work was really in culture, worldviews. So how do I take
Mm,
something that's in the natural sciences and bring it to the human sciences or the management sciences? So making it very simple for the layperson, so to speak, and
yeah.
then say, okay, so what? Why is this important for you to know? Well, I'll tell you why. So the coach is talking to you. But really, the
Yeah.
truth is that I give some concrete evidence why it's important, say, for you, your home, your family, your relationship, your spouse, you name it, and then you can carry out the day to day. So that's what it means to me.
That's great. Has has the podcast changed you at all? Like, because it seems like you have fantastic information to share, and I love how you break it down.
Hmm.
I'm just wondering if after sharing all that, you look at things a little bit differently.
You've been talking to my wife, so I'm gonna ask you if she giving you some cues, because she asked me actually the same question when I got to number 50, and so my wife Tajay. So sometime I've interviewed her. She's probably the smarter person between us, but she doesn't like to get on on the camera or over the mic. But she
Yeah.
asked me that question, and I would say yes. I think because my podcast is so much about reflecting, reflecting what I see around me, the relationship, and
Hmm.
then being empathetic on what that other person is going through. In
Hmm.
some ways, when you get a good book, what makes an author a real good author, if you're reading a novel, for example, is that the characters feel like you know them. They come alive. They jump
Hmm.
out of the page. But really, it's out of the head of that novelist, right? But they had to
Yeah.
take a very extended period sitting, reflecting, meditating, getting to know each of these lived experiences to make the characters real. In some ways, it's kind of like that because when I do the podcast, especially when it's a monologue,
Hmm.
if I'm doing something 45 minutes long, people will check out at 5 minutes if it's not somewhat engaging. So trying to figure out what the other person may be feeling while I'm actually doing it, that's where sort of I'm thinking I'm having a conversation with you, although no one's there. Yeah, no one's there. I'm
Yeah.
saying it
Yeah.
for but I do imagine that in front of the mic to kind of do that. So in that experience of empathizing, I become actually more empathetic because I can now get into the experience of the other person a lot more readily.
Mm, I can definitely see that. Even if someone never wants to release a podcast episode ever, there's
Hmm.
something to the routine exploration of like
Yes.
a topic and how you think about it, how you talk about it, and how others think and talk about it. So
Hmm.
that's, maybe for the listeners, I don't know, record a couple episodes and keep them to yourselves. Just see how your brain reacts to that, how you feel.
Yeah.
See, you're giving inspiration already, done they? For like
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah. Look at that. You have it. You're so right. I think that I found like especially in this time of leadership and there's so much going on and you're an established leader yourself and you could probably attest that there's so much of a requirement to be attuned to what other people are thinking and doing in this moment, especially in your organization. If
Mhm.
you don't have that practice of being self-aware, at least of how you're coming off, what energy you're bringing
Mhm.
off, what are you doing? I won't say you're doomed, but I mean, you just miss out a whole lot because you're just really myopic in terms of how you're seeing the world and how you're seeing yourself. So I think is an indispensable. If you have dispensable income, I think do have a luxury than others who may not have that, and I get that. So there's a little bit of assumption there. Talk about my self reflection that when you have
Mhm.
disposable income, you can do a little bit more of that. But I would hope and assume that most people have an opportunity to do what you said, like to sit down, ponder, record themselves in terms of their either writing or even a tape or a podcast to see what are you thinking and how do you use that to continue to grow as a person, your own growth mindset.
Yeah. Now, you have some fantastic topics for your shows. Why don't you talk a little bit about one of the latest ones, loneliness at work?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel like this is a big topic, right? There's an epidemic. We've touched on it on this show before. But what is your take on it? And what would you like our listeners to take away from that?
Wow, wow, that's such a heavy and this matters to me because I was the person that was probably lonely at work. I don't think recognized I needed companionship at lunchtime. But when
Mm,
I saw my peers, and they were predominantly, I was in a predominantly a female department. All women, I think
okay.
I was the only gentleman guy. And when lunchtime came, they all kind of got up and went among themselves.
Hmm.
And that's it. I feel weird. I'd like, why am I continuing to be left out? And I feel kind of alone here. And I find ways to, you find your own sort of coping and resilience. But I
Yeah.
knew that from a personal level, like this is like very real. Like, what if I
Mhm.
wasn't able to go out and engage people above my workplace? Like how the 12 o'clock hour or the 1 o'clock hour or 11, whatever that time you take lunch, how much you don't look forward to that, especially if your work is a drudgery and then on top of that you are alone. So
Yeah.
that's a very much a very real thing. On top of that, people think loneliness at work is kind of like, oh, are you like that child in high school and they're sitting in the corner all by themselves, right? Is it like that because that's kind of juvenile? So no,
Mhm.
people, all of us crave relationships,
Yeah.
and we take that for granted. We think it's a child thing. People don't get lonely. But I know that from my own experience, that is true. I know that from the people that I actually created a community to address loneliness at work, to
Mm.
connect, have conversations, especially when people are going through hard times for whatever reason. Because I've been in the HR space and people who've been
Mhm.
harassed and feel like they're marginalized at work. They don't have a place. I know safe place is something like a very sometimes a trite word to use, but I really mean it. Like creating a
Yeah.
space for them to have conversations that they can't have with maybe their colleagues because they're maybe not trusting them. Their managers for sure they may not be able to trust, and they're just tired and spent. And I know you talk about being burnt out. When you feel like you're carrying this load all by yourself, that adds to the burnout. So to know that
Mhm.
you have a community that can lock arms with you, carry the weight, that was one of the
Yeah.
aspirations, one of the organizations I created for that very reason, for mainly public sector. The last point I want to say, in the United Kingdom, there is literally a ministry, at least what I call a few years ago, they created, and I say ministry, in the US, it would be called maybe a state department, right?
Yeah.
So they created
Mhm.
a ministry to address, they called the Ministry of Loneliness, and they
Mhm.
assigned cabinet official to oversee that. So just to say that
Mhm.
when I did this particular episode, I had all these thoughts in mind that this is a real thing and need to be articulated.
And that's a good point, right? So we don't, at least to my knowledge, we don't have a ministry equivalent for loneliness, right? So in your organization, or even in some of the groups that you're in, like this is for the listeners, right? Are you seeing loneliness? Are you looking for it? And are you doing anything about it? Right? Just next time you're in a space, do something.
Yeah, yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
I wanted to back up there because you said something that within, obviously in the U.S., I'm in Canada,
Hmm.
and I just talked about the United Kingdom. So there's cultural context of how people perceive relationships, how people perceive companionship, how people see friendship. But I do
Hmm.
think as being common Western countries, there is a commonality.
Yeah.
And there is a sense that we as men, and I'm wearing my Buffalo Bills shirt and got my hat on, and this is sort of like
Hmm.
your epitome of toughness. Man, the death by suicide among men
Hmm.
is higher than women. And among the
Yeah.
toughest of men, especially those who play football and end up with some type of concussion, CTE, adding
Hmm.
loneliness because you can't articulate what's going on in you, it's
Hmm.
a recipe for disaster. So the strongest of men, there's this sort of bravado that we don't need this sort of companionship or someone to talk to, could be further true. So what I'm just saying that we need to have more of a lens because I think sometimes we think about these things as genderized, right? It's either feminine, it's either
Yeah.
male. No, it's a human experience. And so going to
Hmm.
answer your question directly, do I see it? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The number of times I will sit down with someone and said, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I feel like I have to because I have nowhere else to turn.
Hmm.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, what did I do? Well, you just listened. You paid attention. And that means the world. And they get so much of a low because I think nowadays people, when they hear deep stuff, it's like, so how's the weather?
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
hard pivot.
yeah, let's pivot. Like, it's like, yeah, I'm not going there. Let's talk about weather. Let's talk about how the Bills are playing.
Hmm.
And the social cues, and that means I should shut down because you don't understand me. And then you remain your loneliness. At least for me,
Hmm.
yes, I don't mind talking sports, but if you are in need of a conversation that will provide psychological oxygen for your soul
Mm,
because people are
yes.
suffocating and they need to breathe. The conversation helps people to breathe.
Hmm. That makes complete sense. I like the terminology that you're using too. So let's say, because I have a mix of men and women that are listeners here, right? So
Hmm.
with with the men that are maybe not as used to or inclined to say, "Hey, I need to talk," or like have a conversation, do you have any advice for them to just reach out on that like basic level with coworkers, especially people that are working from home? Like, do you have any advice for them on how to break out of the loneliness piece?
Yeah, you know what? I remember talking to my daughter, and we were talking just offline about children and my daughter being in high school. And I remember when she just got into high school and it's a big transition. It's like, what if I don't make any friends? What if I don't? And it's like, then go be a friend. If you
Mhm,
want friends, then be a friend. And I remember this reading Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And one of the
mm,
things he talked about is being liked, right? And being a likable person so you create the friendships that you want to create. So I do think there's a level
mhm.
of intentionality. I know some people hope that people will stumble upon, hey, I could be your friend. Sometimes it
Yeah,
doesn't wish.
popping out.
Yeah, so it sometimes doesn't, you have to have a level of courage to get out there and push against your, especially if you are an introvert, you're a hermit, you
Mhm,
like to be to yourself. You really have to
yeah,
push yourself, to stretch yourself, be that friend that you want a friend to be to you. It's so true. And when you do find that it's a boomerang. Like you're helping someone and you're helping yourself at the same time. So I would think
mhm,
that my first tip is like develop the courage, see someone that's within your social proximity, whether it be something that you like to do, whether it's sports or volunteering, and then go and introduce yourself. And then I think those
mhm.
are ways that you start to break out of the loneliness.
I have to remind myself sometimes because I tend to just kind of sit back. Even something as simple as like, my younger daughter is now playing soccer too, right? So to
Hmm.
actually introduce myself to the other parents instead of just sitting on the sideline, like I should not let myself just, be in a static state. So that is very good advice that you're giving. Now,
Absolutely. And you think I just have the same because that is
yeah.
a great way to create friendships. Like when you start to take your children here, there, and everywhere, that becomes another community that you can plug into. But
Mhm.
so many of us are just like, we get to the practice and now we're scrolling on our phones again.
Yeah.
And that opportunity for public space. And I must admit, the reason I had my children in sports was the fact that I did not want them to be lonely post COVID because I think
Mm,
part of the epidemic with children being lonely too is
yeah.
because we succumb to their desires of like, I want to be online, and we're like, okay, I don't want to go through the hassle of taking them off, and we let
Hmm.
them go there to their detriment because there's a
Yeah.
reason why they're children, not parents.
Hmm.
And when we do that, we you just see the mood just plummet. So I told my children, it's like we're all playing flag football. Initially, I told my daughter plays at a high level and rep.
Yeah.
She did not want to be in flag football. She would tell you like she loathed me and she said, I don't want to be there. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad dad for a few seconds. And I'm like, no, this is good for you. And it's like, but I learned through that interaction, having all of them outdoors
Hmm.
really picked up their mood. And not to say loneliness vanished overnight, but those are ways you start to create community and security. So I would just
Hmm.
say that parents and young children, get out there, get off the phone, say hello to each other, be a friend if you want a friend. And I just add that in there because I think it's important, especially for children.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is just too funny not to share. But when you mentioned flag football, my daughter had the opportunity to sign up for some after school activities. She signed up for flag football. They're like, oh, wow, that's great. she thought it was capture the flag, so she was not as excited when she went as she thought she was going to be. But to your point, ended up enjoying it, and yeah, it's good
Hmm.
to just get out there. I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about whatever your favorite episode or topic is. Can you share that with the audience and give us a little bit of advice there?
Oh, favorite episode in terms of the coach's corner and that what I've done.
Yeah, yeah. I want you to have the opportunity to talk about something that really sparks your interest that you love speaking about.
Yeah, you know what? I find the feedback I get the most is when I do a podcast with my wife, and they always kept on saying, "So when is she getting her podcast?" I'm like, so I was like,
Move over, Denley.
yeah, but I think I think that the fact that when we come together and we are able to exchange, and I'm pretty open about relationships and
Mhm,
even our journey, and I posted on LinkedIn some time ago because we've been married 21 years, right? And it was at 21 points that we learned, and
mhm,
I think when we do our podcast together, whether I'm interviewing her about her professional or she's interviewing me, I enjoy those the most because it's funny enough. We discover things about ourselves. And you're talking about discovering things in terms of the
yeah,
podcast. Yeah, we
yeah,
discover things about ourselves when we interview each other because I think we take each other for granted, not in a bad sense, but like things you
mhm,
think you knew about someone until you ask them, like, oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Or I didn't
mhm,
know that about myself when you asked me about that question. So I
yeah,
would say the ones with my interviewing my wife, whether we did one on parenting, we did one on my 50th. Those are the ones I find have been meaningful. And I think it will be meaningful for my children when they listen to us and they hear us have something we pass down
mm.
in terms of knowledge.
That's huge. Yeah, I didn't think about that when I first started, but to have like I wish I had that right of my parents talking and interviewing each other. That has to be so
Mhm.
special for the
Mhm.
kids.
You know what? It's funny because my children don't listen to my podcast. So I say, hey, you need to listen to it. They roll their eyes, and their friends are more probably faster to listen. But
Yeah.
I remember Adam, Adam in terms of the who runs Mission Matters,
Mm.
and he said Denley because how I got on initially was because we wrote a book and it was on belonging, and
Oh,
and then he said, you can probably do a podcast too. I'm like. I thought about it. My wife said, "Yeah, you should be doing a podcast," but I didn't really know the angle at the time. And I said, "Well,
yeah.
well, whatever." And so when starting the podcast, he said something in our series of conversations like, "Yeah, this can be passed on to your children, and they'll have this in as a posterity." I'm like, "Okay," so that actually stuck with me. So
Mm,
Adam, shout out to you that in terms I leave a legacy of crazy for my children. But I mean, I think it's crazy love that I hope that they can hear from the two of us and as we share a journey and my wife's pretty open about some of the things that we learned and yeah if we can be an open book to help other people and
mhm,
couples why don't we so yeah share the blessings that way.
yeah. Yeah. Can you share a few of those 21 lessons that you were posting about? I feel like we all need some.
Well though man you got me there she would kill me and say how do you not remember all the 21. I mean
We, no, we don't need all of it. You just
yeah
highlight.
i
Yeah.
I do think that so here's a big thing everyone knows that when uh, you're in a relationship with someone whether it be long-term or marriage wherever you are. Especially if you're married, you exchange vows, and you know that you say that these these vows are somewhat you think they're immutable, and
Mm,
and yes, they are sacred, and yes, you are committed to that, but then the person changes because you never think the
yeah.
person would change. And I'm
Hmm.
I'm just visualizing when we exchange about, and we discover like life hits us, and things that you thought you
Hmm.
would do you don't do, and the things that you do you thought you wouldn't do. So
Hmm.
one of the things I came back from, at least one of the lessons that allowing the person the space to grow, that they will change, guaranteed,
Yeah.
guaranteed
It's
that they will
huge.
change. We are both schools of ongoing learning because we
Hmm.
change. There is a necessity to study the other person, not in a a way that you're taking a test, but
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe some ways you are because I always feel like sometimes in a relationship, my wife said, "I thought you knew what I liked." "What do you mean what you
Yeah.
liked?" "Well, you saw me order that." I'm like, "I wasn't paying attention to what you ordered." "You mean you didn't weren't watching me?" Those are sort of the tests that you're supposed to be observing. So
Yeah.
you paying attention, understanding, and vice versa. I mean, there's things that I do, and I would hope that Tajay would be watching from me. And
Mhm.
then they're like, "Oh, you no longer like this?" "Yeah, I don't like this anymore." "Why?" "I don't
Yeah.
know." So there's this appreciation that people change. They're not the same. And I think when we talk about being able to forgive is such a
Mhm.
big thing. And
Yeah.
because, as you know, like when people, I remember doing one time a marriage ceremony, and I told the couple, the closer you are to each other, the closer you dance with one another, the more likely you step on each other's toes,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's inevitable. As you get closer, you see the imperfections much more easily, and there are imperfections like you, and so being able to say it's okay, you don't have to live by my standards and rules of one thing to kind of lower the bar, so allowing the person to be and not try to
Mhm.
conform, which is hard for all of us to do because we have such expectations like you need to be doing this and that. I even
Mhm.
had a conversation with my daughter. I'm always kind of telling myself, is this necessary for her to be my daughter? Is it necessary for her to be in my house?
Mhm.
Then similar to my wife, do I require her to be or do this sort of thing, or vice versa? And the other
Yeah.
piece is it when we do hurt each other, to say at the end of the day, does this really matter?
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
I remember when my dad passed away about a few years ago, and I've shared this pretty openly, but I always go back to it. All the stuff that he did that I didn't like growing up didn't
Mhm.
matter.
Yeah.
Didn't absolutely matter when he was in a coma in a vegetative state. And there's some crucible moments. That was a crucible moment to say,
Yeah.
remind me, like, does this really matter? Because he didn't have the opportunity to express the ways he wanted to express his life and his feelings, being men growing up in those days. They just didn't talk. And as we talk about,
Yeah.
and I play that in my mind when we have this sort of disagreement, saying, "This does really matter," and better to
Mhm.
forgive. Now, she takes a little bit more time. She'll tell you to forgive because I believe sometimes forgiveness is a little bit of. Some people are. If you could visualize a stove and is ran
Mhm.
on gas, and you turn on the gas and it goes poof, and you turn it off, it goes poof. Or if you're barbecue, my
Yeah.
forgiveness is like that. I can, like, it can come down like the minute, like, okay, I forgive you, poof, smoke comes down.
Mhm.
Then there are
Yeah.
people who are like electric ranges, the old time stove, and you turn it on, the whole foil.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
forgive that where it just takes. I come back to her an hour. Have you forgiven? No, still angry. Come back at David.
Yeah.
Are you forgiven? No, I'm still angry. It's like, how on earth are you still angry? I've forgiven you like in 1 minute. I'm not like you. And so, but
Yeah.
I discovered she's like Michelle Obama. It was a podcast I was listening to with Trevor Noah and her, and she was just talking about her how she forgave with President Obama, and it's like, oh my gosh, she took notes from my wife. They do,
Yeah.
and so, so, but it's true. Some people, when they forgive, like for me, I can make a decision, the feeling goes away. Some people's a slow burn, but I had to respect
Mhm.
that from her. That give her space, even though it's kind of
Yeah.
uncomfortable to do that. So I would just say, if I summarize, like, be able to forgive as often as you can, give people space to be who they are. Don't control what your own expectations of what things should look like, and
Mm.
just know that who you are today may not be the same person tomorrow. And don't fool yourself that, it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. The expectation should be that you're going to change and your spouse is going to change, and your partner's going to change.
Yeah.
And I think just going back to one of the things you said initially when we started
Hmm.
talking about this topic, to keep learning about your spouse. And I think it's it's such a great reminder because especially women, we stop knowing ourselves sometimes, like
Mm,
after we have kids. And maybe it's the same for men. And you can chime in if you think
yeah.
that, but like you have to learn yourself all over again, right? And your spouse, right? So like I find that the moments in time where I'm not keeping track of anybody, right? Like I just have to learn learn what I want, what my husband wants, right? What everybody needs.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Because I can't rely on what just the stored knowledge. That is a fantastic point that you made.
Yeah, and I mean, I always talk about, are there differences between, us as men and women? I mean, I think there is, but just contextual, like depending on different cultures, what they value, what they prioritize, it may look different in one environment than the other. But what I do see to be consistent sometimes, where at least if it's marriage or hetero marriage in that sense, the focus for us sometimes is that the doing and not so much the being, where
Mhm.
like my wife is like on the being. Not to say she doesn't do, but there's sort of like, if we talk, it's baseball playoffs, so the Toronto Blue Jays are in the playoffs. Shout out to the Blue Jays. Everybody has a home plate. Everyone has a starting point, but in
Mhm.
order to score, you got to touch every base. And I think that,
Yeah.
not to say that men don't are not caring about their being, but they start with the doing. That home plate for them, and maybe their spouse
Mhm.
starts with the being, but you have to do being and doing and bring them together. So I find that
Mhm.
the doing part we got right, but we forget that we need the being. We need to bring it back to holistic, and what does that really mean to each other. There was a great
Mhm.
example that I heard, that when men go out for for dinner, there's an activity that's centered in it, right? And so the activity is the eating. So they'll go eat
Mhm.
and have wings. When
Yeah.
women go out and they supposed to dinner, the center is getting the being. And so when they come home,
Yeah.
it's like, here's the food that I brought. Here's the food I had for dinner. It's like, wait a minute, you didn't have dinner? No, no, we got so
Yeah.
caught up with talking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the
It's a
socialization, the community.
socialization,
Yeah.
right? And we're like, so where's the
Yeah.
food that you go? Oh, I ate
Yeah.
it. That's what you do. You go out and eat. I don't bring anything home.
Yeah.
But it's this
Yeah.
focus that when men bond, they bond through the doing, and when they bond through the being. But we do
Mhm.
need opportunities where we do need the face to face conversation. So going back to getting to know each other, because we're so caught up on the doing, we don't necessarily sit down and to get to know ourselves a little as much, or and especially we're doing. Our friends are not asking how we're doing. No, no, no.
Mm.
I don't want to know how much money you're making. I don't know no, how are you doing? Right? Let's get
Yeah.
away from the doing. Let's
Mhm.
get into the being and having those
Mhm.
brave conversations. I have a group of men that I sojourn or travel with, and was very
Mhm.
instrumental in that sort of pivot in my life. I've been journeying with them probably over, yeah, I'm around 15 years or so, and it has kind of helped form the importance of saying, "How are you doing? I love you."
Mhm.
You're,
Yeah.
it's just genuine love for each other. That informs the podcast that I do, just in terms of how do I get people to, as at least men, express themselves, and even for women to express themselves in genuine ways that each other
Mhm.
connect. My biggest hope in the time of polarization between a whole
Yeah.
bunch of different groups, I believe
Mhm.
that we're stronger together, and also believe that as men, we take for granted of being able to better understand not only our wives or partners, but better understand women in general to make us better
Mhm.
men. And I think the
Mhm.
same is true the flip side, as women to be better in their being with among others, also understanding men. Because I think we're one human, we have one destiny together to kind of move and make this world a better place. And if we're divided, even at that level, then, you know, what are we going to leave our children with?
Yeah. Yeah. The division just doesn't help.
No, no, it
I'm with
doesn't.
you there.
No, no,
Now,
it doesn't.
I'm very curious because I think you have a mastermind program, and I'm very interested to figure out what you talk about. Tell us a little bit about it. Right? It's Script Soul Story.
Yeah, and initially I think, "Oh, my master's program." I said, "Oh, that's what oh, my mastermind." So that's why I was making sure I heard. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? I had an opportunity to speak in Miami actually a few weeks ago, and it was to a so it was a women's conference actually, but they invited some
Mm.
men, and as I said, I think it's important for people to be in different spaces to stretch and their
Mhm.
knowledge. So it was great seeing women from different parts of the world. So, and I was asked, "Can you deliver something that'd be meaningful, memorable, and say, well, predominantly the women's about the women's health, and they asked me, "Can you speak on that?" So women's health. I'm
Mhm.
not a woman, and I don't know anything about health. I said, "No, no, no. You bring something positive and encouraging." So I said, "Okay, let me just think about it." And so the message I wanted to leave the room full of women was the fact that it's important to it's important for what messages have been told to you as a younger person
Mhm.
growing to the adult you are today. Like, what were the information, what was the programming, what was all those things that shape your subconscious, your heart. Those are the scripts. Then when I talk about the soul, it's like, okay, you've been programmed. So using maybe digital language, the information comes in, that's
Yeah.
the script, right? The script of being an actor, script of being a baker or a pizza tosser. Like, so everyone get this
Mhm.
sort of information. Now it comes into your soul, which is that part of this. When I say the soul, I went a little technical, saying that you have your conscious side, your subconscious side, which seem to make up
Mhm.
this entity that we call the mind. How is that shaping that subconscious? What conversations are you having about
Mhm.
the relationships inwardly?
Mhm.
And I don't want to make it seem like it's so deep, but all of us are dialoguing with our thoughts. All of us
Yeah.
are all of us are figuring out how to make connections in the experiences that we're going through by the scripts
Mhm.
that we're saying. And by having those particular information, we're able to bring across a message that you are able to communicate to yourself. So your
Mhm.
script comes in, your soul, you're processing in your subconscious, you're feeling your feelings, you're feeling what's going on. You're asking yourself, how's this now impacting my life? How is this now shaping my emotions? How is that feeling my shaping my feelings? And then the story is what I was sharing, that you now project the future based on maybe revising your past. Because most of the time
Mhm.
you can predict someone's future by looking at someone's past, because most of us are creatures of habit. So the whole point is to be able to be disruptive and
Mhm.
disrupt those sort of bad habits that
Yeah.
comes from the lack of introspection, that comes from not examining your mind, your heart, your soul, the emotions. But once you figure out what you need to do to be able to move forward accordingly to the story that you're looking to do. So I think those are what I wanted to leave with the folks that I have in the audience, was when you take the script, you take the soul and the story, what's coming in, how are you processing it, and how are you now living out a new story that is of power, of influence, and of worth and dignity. Because like I said, many we're struggling with loneliness. We're struggling with knowing our worth and our value. We're
Mhm.
struggling knowing what's our the whole purpose and meaning for us in this world. That was a way for me to really lean into helping with the women's health. So it was received
Mm.
well. In terms of the mastermind, it's kind of now, let's take that sort of 30-minute conversation, TED Talk, like whatever. Well, TED Talk's actually shorter,
Mhm.
but a little more a longer
Yeah.
presentation, and then kind of protract it. And what does it mean to have a dialogue that's talking about what you've been hearing? What does it mean to now have a conversation about how you're processing? What stories do you now have to deal with that seems to haunt you? And then let's talk about the future. How are we going to put this into practice? Because as a coach, you're thinking about what are the practical steps that we can make and do to walk out the new you, the better you,
Mhm.
the healed you, the you that wants to say, I'm sorry, forgive me. Can we do this over
Mhm.
again? I missed you. Yeah, that's kind of how I look at the mastermind there.
I didn't realize that the start of it was women's health, but that's a great, like expansive sort of program that you adapted. That's very useful and clever there. Now, and on the personal side,
Hmm.
you have so much going on, right? You wear many hats, very similar to others out there. How do you personally avoid burnout with everything going on in your life?
And I remember when I heard you pitch that question, I was like, hmm. There's a part that says I don't know, and there's a part that says I do know. I don't know
Mhm,
in the sense that as I think about, yes, running a not for profit, doing coaching and podcasting, then you're adding on parenting and volunteering. I get those questions I ask all the time. How do you sleep? And then I ask
yeah.
myself, well, I don't really sleep. Am I burnt out? No, I do,
Yeah.
I do, I do find time to sleep. I'm very fortunate. I think there's a level of biology where I don't need a ton of sleep. I get enough
Mhm.
where I'm just recharged. Like I'm one of those people that, Tajik, my wife can tell you that when I'm tired, I can fall asleep right near in this podcast, and but I'm not going to do that. But that's also like
Yeah,
it's
thank
like
you for
literally,
not falling asleep.
you just I fall asleep pretty quick and I wake up pretty quickly. So I don't really have that sort of drag, and I'm grateful because I understand if you have insomnia, that is not very helpful
Mhm,
for you. But that's where
yeah.
kind of where I'm coming from. So saying that, I think there's a level of your biology. One of the things that balancing, I think levity is so important. As you know, in this conversation, we probably
Mhm,
chuckled a few times.
yeah,
I'm very intentional. I have to laugh at least a few times a day.
yeah.
I have to. Life is too short not to. Even like I said, even with a passing with a loved one, levity. It's not sacrilegious. It's not, you know, it's saying that we're human and you need some time to breathe, right? When you laugh, you breathe more,
Mhm,
and you breathe more, you get more
yeah.
energy. So I think that's important. Levity, laughter, and joy. So one of the ways to maintain that is in the day, I find times to laugh. I think another thing is seeing the end in mind. I do a lot of
Mhm.
things, but I say to myself, I don't have to do this. I want to do this.
Yeah, I do that too. It's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have to do this. I want to. And you know what that simply means. It gives you
Mhm,
permission to stop, and it also gives
mhm.
you permission to be empowered to go do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
by saying that, at least to myself, that's been helpful when I'm doing a lot of things. I'm like, oh my goodness, another thing. And I'm like, I don't have to do that. I think also having a mindset like, is it worth it at the end of the day? I think
Mhm,
where you start to really understand the big picture for yourself, purpose, your why, that fuels your soul, right? We talk about script, soul, and
mhm,
story. Like you understanding why you're doing what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like it's just bring it on, and
mhm,
that charges you. At least for me, I think the other
mhm.
thing that I learned from reading stuff from James Clear, the Atomic Habit, and talking about putting one way to make change is doing micro habits and behaviors. And as I was thinking
Mhm.
about that, the more that one of the things that I feel people struggle with when they do too much is they do too much. They do too much of a new thing too soon. And if you're
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to do too many new things at once,
Mhm,
your
mhm,
body stresses out. But
mhm.
I bet you if you think about all the things you do, Patrice, at home, all the things you do at work, think about
Mhm.
it. If you had to do all of them at once new, how difficult that would be for you or for me.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
now it's in your subconscious. You
Mhm,
don't even think about it. It's on autopilot. And then you're thinking about the next thing. And I
mhm.
think that's the thing that when you do a lot of many things, it's easy when it's already part of who you are. It's part of your DNA that you're trying to learn it. And that's another part of your brain, which creates a different set of stress experiences. So I would just say that because I've done many things for such an extended period, with this is just life and I enjoy what I do, I can do them. And then I see my children, I see the work that I want to do to leave a legacy, that a world that's a better place for them, that continues to drive me in part. The last thing that I want to say, the difference between expectations and expectancy, because
Mhm,
one of the things that I said, it was a podcast I left the expectation versus expectancy. The difference between when we let people know what we letting people have grace and
Hmm.
not always imposing on them rules and conduct and what you need to do for me. When you
Hmm.
are less likely to kind of impose that on people, because many times I find when you have a busy life and you expect so many things from so many people, that can cause a
Yeah.
stress and burnout. I learned that if someone doesn't do something for me, I can't always judge to the conclusion they didn't do it for me because they hated me. They didn't do it for me because they didn't like
Hmm.
me. They didn't do it for me because they saw something that I wanted and it just being nefarious and like, I want to make this guy life miserable not doing it. People just they're so busy, life gets away, or you just never communicated to them, and you have to ask the question like,
Hmm.
"Did I ask you this?" And you find out, no, you never asked that. So I had an expectancy that you would do that, which I say expectancy is to say that it's an expectation not communicated outwardly, meaning
Mm.
that we have
Okay.
expectations that not told to people,
Hmm.
but we get mad at them when they don't do it
Yeah. Hmm.
because you think that based on prior experience they should, and maybe they should. But when you don't communicate expectations clearly to others, that will stress you out. And so I always kind of make a check, at least for myself. Was I clear enough? If I don't make that check, my wife will remind me, did you make that check? I think all of those
Hmm.
things kind of help, at least for me, when I'm doing many things that I don't try to put burden on other people. I try to keep things light. I try to see the big
Yeah.
picture. And I make sure that this is just part of who who you are as a DNA. So I hope that kind of gives a little bit of a story, of, at least for me, and plus being a Bills fan, you learn how to deal with losses and traumas in that sense to be able to deal with life's burnout.
Learn how to bounce back.
The way to
Stay
bounce
motivated.
exactly
Yeah.
same road.
That's great. Yeah. That is a great thing about sport. Uh, Dudley, this has been fantastic. Is there any last thing that you want to say to the audience before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, for those for listening and Patrice, I appreciate what you're doing. From my end, and in terms of we're in the same field. So I like people to know that one, continue to check out her podcast. Shout out to Patrice. But from my
Thank you.
from but from my standpoint, if people are interested in connecting, I'm on LinkedIn. My podcast is always the Coach's Corner with Denley McIntosh, the only Coach's Corner because there are other people who try to steal my name. And I remember Adam saying, "We got this in locked in," so it's with Denley
Yeah.
McIntosh. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok. I'm surprising growing on TikTok. So apparently, a lot of the
Oh,
youth, I
nice.
think, yeah, a lot of the youth are, at least when I put out videos, what I thought would be for
Hmm.
more professionals. Apparently, a lot of youth and teenagers are resonating with the message. And it told me something about going back to loneliness and purpose.
Hmm.
Gen Zs and Gen Alphas are hungering for a positive message. So, if so, to
Mm.
those parents who are saying, "Hey, how do I motivate my child?" Yeah, maybe just share them the podcast with me, or a young person that's looking for direction. Share my podcast.
Yeah.
If you're looking for me to speak, welcome to do that. And or group coaching, as Patrice shared about the mastermind. Those are things that resonate with you. Do give a brother a holla at hello at renewiq.ca. Hello, HELO at renewiq.ca, and we can take it from there. So that's me in a little bit in a nutshell. Hope to connect with people in any shape, way, or form or platform.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for walking us around the ring and showing us the ropes. To all the listeners, I hope you have a fantastic week. Stay away from burnout. All right. Bye, everyone.